I was standing on the only road that connected my home to the rest of the world, watching three steel posts, still wet with fresh concrete, rise out of the asphalt like the ribs of a trap meant for an animal that didn't know it was already prey. One of the men in an HOA jacket looked up from the welding torch, smirked, and said, "We override you." And in that moment, with the early morning air still cold in my lungs, I understood something that hit harder than fear. This wasn't about a road anymore. This was about caging me inside my own land. I should probably back up, because storms like this don't always announce themselves with sirens and flashing lights. Sometimes they start with something small, quiet, something you almost toss aside. For me, it started with a letter, a thick one, stuffed crookedly into my mailbox on a Tuesday afternoon, like whoever delivered it didn't want their fingerprints anywhere near it. The logo on the front was stamped in gold. Ridgepoint Glen Homeowners Association. Fancy. Official. The kind of seal people use when they want you to feel small before you've even opened the envelope. The letter didn't waste time pretending to be neighborly. It opened with, "Dear associated user of our private infrastructure," which somehow managed to be both bureaucratic and insulting at the same time. According to the HOA president, Karen Besley, I had exactly two options. Option 1, pay $6,000 and formally join the HOA within 14 days. Option 2, stop using their road immediately. The same road my family had a permanent state-recorded easement for long before Karen Besley ever learned how to weaponize a clipboard. I called the number at the bottom of the page. She answered on the second ring, like she'd been waiting for it. Ridgepoint Glen Homeowners Association, President Besley speaking. I told her my name, Avery Colebrook, and that I'd just received her letter. She cut me off mid-sentence, sharp and practiced. "Good. We've been waiting. You're the last unregistered party using our road." I remember keeping my voice calm on purpose. People like her feed on anger. I explained slowly, clearly, that my property wasn't part of her HOA, and that the easement granting me access to that road was permanent and recorded by the state. She responded with that syrupy authority tone HOA presidents seem to develop after years of policing lawn heights and trash can placements. "Your easement does not override HOA ownership. You use it, you pay. It's time you join the community officially." "Ma'am," I said, "that's not how easements work." There was a pause. Thick. Heavy. And then she said, "If you prefer the hard route, we can pursue enforcement." I hung up before she could warm up for another threat. That night, 2 SUVs crawled slowly along the road past my house, slow enough to make sure I saw them. They took photos of the asphalt, the signs, the turnoff to my property, like they were planning a siege instead of pretending to be neighbors. I stood on my porch with my hands in my pockets, not angry yet, not rattled, just watching, noting the pattern. These people weren't confused. They were testing the perimeter. 2 days later, I found out what enforcement meant to Karen Besley. I was heading out for a routine supply run when I saw it. 3 concrete barriers placed with measuring tape precision, and a brand, new metal gate stretched across them, cutting off the road completely. 2 HOA security officers stood beside it, arms folded, chests puffed, like they'd just been promoted from mall cop to border patrol. I stepped out of my truck and said, "Morning," because manners cost nothing and they irritate the right people. One of them raised a hand. "Road is closed to unauthorized users. Please return to your residence." I told him this was my legal access road and that he needed to move the barrier. He recited the HOA line like a robot. Only registered residents may use this section. That's when I turned on my body cam. I said, clearly, "You are blocking the only exit from my property." They stiffened. I called the sheriff. Deputy Hansen arrived about 15 minutes later, took one look at the barriers, then at the guards, and let out a sigh, the kind a man saves for very stupid dogs. "Move these," he ordered. They started to protest. Hansen cut them off. "You don't outrank state law." That's when the Lexus rolled up. Cream, colored blazer, sunglasses at dawn, posture like she was stepping out to receive an award. Karen Besley, in full command mode. "Deputy," she snapped, "you cannot force my security team to remove HOA property." Hansen didn't blink. "Ma'am, unless you'd like to spend your morning in the back of my cruiser, step aside." She glared at me as the barriers were rolled away. Not defeated, just wounded, calculating. If it had ended there, it would have been an annoyance, a story you tell friends over a beer. But people like Karen don't retreat. They reload. The next morning, FedEx dropped off a packet labeled Road Use Agreement 1994. According to the document, a relative of mine had signed away easement rights decades ago. The problem was, the relative they claimed signed it couldn't physically hold a pen the year they said he did. The formatting looked sloppy, like someone had asked a discount AI to forge a legal document and clicked Generate without proofreading. I laughed when I read it. Not because it was funny, but because it was insulting. I drove straight to the county records office. A clerk named Brooks scanned the document, raised one eyebrow, and said, "This is fake." He printed out certified proof on the spot. I walked out thinking, maybe this finally slows her down. It didn't. When I got home, a landscaping crew was digging a trench on my land. They told me the HOA had ordered a mandatory fire pathway inspection. They even handed me paperwork, with my forged signature on it this time. I told them they were trespassing. The supervisor nodded, embarrassed, and packed his crew up. I filmed everything. Evidence piles up nicely when emotions stay steady. And then came the morning with the metallic clanging, the hiss of hot steel, the sight of 4 men installing steel posts straight through my road. I didn't charge in yelling. I walked up slowly, letting every step sink in. One guy froze like a raccoon caught raiding a pantry. The welder barked. "Stand back. HOA business," I said. "Looks like felony obstruction to me." The stocky one strutted over, chest out. "You were warned. This road belongs to the HOA." "That's not how easements work," I said again. And then he made the mistake. He grabbed my arm. I twisted his wrist down and guided him to the ground with the same calm efficiency I used handling heavy equipment back when I wore a uniform. Another guy lunged at me with a sledgehammer handle. I redirected him straight into one of the posts they'd planted. The welder stepped forward, torch still hot. I raised my phone. "Threaten me with that," I said. "And this jumps to aggravated assault." He backed off. One guy ran into the woods. Classic. When Deputy Hansen arrived, he surveyed the concrete, the posts, the tools, the bruised men, and shook his head slowly. "This is illegal as hell," he said. The welder kept repeating, "She told us we were allowed." And that's when it clicked. Karen hadn't just overstepped. She'd crossed into criminal territory. What followed was psychological warfare. Burner accounts flooded local Facebook groups, painting me as violent, unstable, dangerous. I screenshotted everything. Then county inspectors started showing up. Fire marshal, building department, all responding to anonymous reports of improvised explosive traps. Their embarrassment when they found nothing would have been funny if it wasn't exhausting. At one point, The entire HOA board showed up in matching polo shirts, wandering my property line like rejected documentary filmmakers. One woman took a photo of my welcome mat. It says, "Beware of goat." I asked what exactly they were documenting. She said, "Evidence for the association's legal case." I called Hanson. They scattered. That's when the doubt crept in. Late at night, sitting at my kitchen table, surrounded by papers and screenshots, I started wondering if I'd missed something. If maybe, somehow, I was wrong. Maybe there was a loophole. Maybe I should just pay and make it stop. I was tired, angry, worn down. This is how they win, by making you question your own ground. The turning point came with a call from the County Roads Commission. Conflicting documentation. They said a formal meeting was required. When I arrived, 3 HOA SUVs were lined up outside like they were attending a coronation. Karen stood beside them, arms crossed, smug in that way only someone who believes they're untouchable can be. Inside, she presented yet another forged agreement, claiming my easement had expired. Then the clerk pulled the original 1976 file. Then a former HOA board member stood up, hands shaking, and confessed that Karen had ordered them to fabricate evidence. The room went silent. Karen shot to her feet, hissing that he was lying. The chairwoman snapped. "Sit down." The document was flagged for criminal investigation. My easement was confirmed valid. Karen didn't know it yet, but the ground beneath her had cracked. The real collapse came in court. Reporters, neighbors, HOA members sitting stiff like churchgoers who sensed the sermon wouldn't favor them. Judge Redmond entered with the posture of a man allergic to nonsense. The prosecution laid everything out. Every fake document, every false complaint, every trespass, every threat. Then the welding footage played. You could hear fabric shift as people leaned forward. "HOA orders," one of her men said on video, right before grabbing me. My attorney, Gina, dismantled the case piece by piece. Brooks' certification. The confession. Photos of Karen inspecting the dirt where the posts would later be installed. Karen slammed her hands on the table. "This is taken out of context." Judge Redmond didn't raise his voice. "Ms. Besley, another outburst, and you will be held in contempt." When the verdict came, her confidence drained completely. 10 years. Her accomplices got 3 and 5. The HOA was fined into irrelevance. She screamed as deputies escorted her out, insisting it was her community, and I didn't belong. Her voice faded into a desperate echo. Later, I stood on the old road, listening to the wind move through the pines. No triumph, no relief, just silence that finally meant something. Power only works when people believe in it, and it crumbles fast when the person you're trying to cage refuses to kneel.